The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of life as truth. The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth. The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We are getting set up here.
Okay.
We are mid-morning of the second complete day of Sesshin. And Rarian has already warned us that the second day may be the most difficult. And that's been my experience as well, that Sesshin is a little bit like climbing a mountain. And first day, second day, third day can be very difficult. We're getting used to sitting. Our body is not perhaps used to sitting so much. And by the fourth day, fifth day, when we finally are able to sit well, soon Sesshin is over. So I really want to encourage you to believe that if you continue, if you keep on with your zazen, that you will be able to push through that difficulty. I think all people, well, virtually all people, even if you've been sitting 20, 30, 40 years, that Sesshin is not necessarily an easy thing to do. Back, knees, neck, whatever, everybody has some difficulty sitting. But if you persevere, if you push through that, there will come a time when it's easier for you to sit. As Dogen mentioned yesterday, we are, those of us here, there are just 8 people here at Hokyoji. We are supported by each other. Sure, cook, Hartman's cooking for us. Ina looking out for us. Doan looking after the zendo and the services. The abbot, of course, Dokai, teachers. We all agree to the rules. One of the main rules is that we do not speak. There's no unnecessary speaking. Plus, this Hokyoji is just a wonderful, quiet environment. No cars, no sound of traffic, no social media, no computers, no telephone. which all contributes and helps to make this an environment to support our Zazen. And I have to admit, I was somewhat skeptical of doing Sesshin by Zoom. For those of you at home, I suspect that it's even more challenging for you to really bring your concentration to your Zazen. Nevertheless, I encourage you to believe that Zazen is the way to find peace of mind and joy, as Dogen says, joyful ease, the Dharma gate of joyful ease. And here's hoping that next year that we can meet here at Hokyoji under the usual circumstances, where those of you who are intent on doing this practice can join us together in this environment. I'm fond of a Japanese proverb, and it's very likely I've mentioned this at previous sessions, and that proverb is, a deer hunter doesn't see the mountains. I've never hunted deer, I've never had that desire, but I can easily understand this image, that someone who is completely intent on their goal doesn't care how high the mountains are, how low the valleys are, the weather, the brambles, the rocks. That person is only intent on getting the deer. His livelihood depends on that. And I was thinking, is that person making effort? Of course. But in that moment, when that person is really intent on that goal, he is not conscious of making that effort. He is just single-mindedly watching the deer. Otherwise, that deer is going to escape. He doesn't know when or if he'll see another deer. So his complete focus, just like our Zazen, to keep our focus on that deer. That's the objective of Sesshin. If we get lost in thoughts about, oh, my legs are hurting, I don't know if I can continue doing this, and so on, then the deer will escape. So Sesshin is really to be simple, or some people would say empty, to really focus our mind on one thing. My teacher often said that the method is the result. We've already heard about Dogen Zenji, the great Japanese priest who, at a very young age, had the doubt, question, that none of his teachers in Japan could answer. That question was, why is it necessary to practice? The Buddha, in all of the sutras, unequivocally said that everybody has Buddha nature. And finally, he went to China. He was compelled, like the deer hunter, he was compelled to find an answer to that question. He was compelled to go to China. That in itself would have been difficult, but even moving around in China, I doubt if he spoke Chinese well, but through that great karmic connection, he was able to meet Ruji, the teacher who was able to help him resolve that question. When Dogen returned to Japan, somebody asked him, what did you attain in China? There's a very famous verse, a part of which goes, the eyes lie horizontal. The nose stands vertical. I will not be fooled by others. Returning to Japan, my home country, empty-handed. Because the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma, does not exist in the least. Dogen had gone to China in search of the Dharma. And here he comes back to his home country saying, I'm empty-handed. I didn't bring anything back. I only realized that the eyes lie horizontal. The nose stands vertical. And that's true for all of us, right? We all see, smell, taste, touch, and think. These functions are working, I would say, automatically. He hadn't brought any sutras back with him. He didn't bring any special teachings or souvenirs. He had simply realized that the Buddha Dharma, that thing that he had gone in search of, doesn't exist. What does that mean? I mentioned that because at the beginning of Fukanzazengi Hokyoji Dogen explained very well yesterday. It says, the way is originally perfect and all-pervading. And in the first few sentences, he lists 4 statements, followed each by a question, which surely very much reflects Dogen Zenji's own search and resolution. That the way of Buddha, the way of liberation, that way which we are seeking, which he was seeking when he went to China, he found out is perfect from the beginning. It is all pervading. It's everywhere. It's everywhere to the extent that it doesn't exist. If everywhere is the way or the Buddha Dharma, for me, these are synonymous. That's to say that there is no way. There is no Buddha Dharma. It's also to say that this thing, my teacher and his teacher were very fond of saying that, pointing at this thing, they didn't want to restrict it to the body, the mind, of course. And we're in the habit of thinking that this is me, this is the body and mind. But from another viewpoint, this is the Dharma. This is the way. The only thing that prevents us from realizing that is that attachment we have to the idea that this thing is me, that somewhere dwelling within this thing, there is something we think of as me. But I can't emphasize enough that I think these first statements that Dogen Zenji is making at the beginning of Fukanzazengi are said from his point of view of enlightenment. After he had realized that there is no Buddha Dharma. For us, and that includes me, my friends, who have not made the way completely our own, I think it's really not possible to understand these statements at face value. And that's why he he's adding these questions. I feel like he's prodding us. Well, what are you doing here anyway? What does this have to do with practice or realization? The true vehicle is self-sufficient. I remember the translation, the Dharma vehicle is free and unrestricted. Everybody is on board. This vehicle is the same vehicle as the Mahayana. Everybody's on board. There's nobody who's not on board. What need is there for special effort? Yeah, everybody's on board. For Dogen, that was clear. Everybody's on board. On the other hand, though, as he says a little bit later, if there is the least like or dislike, the mind is lost in confusion. If there is even a hair's breadth deviation, it is like the gap between heaven and earth. Here at Hokyoji, we see the beautiful stars at night, the heavens. We see the earth. It does feel distant. That distance, if the way exists, even slightly, or even if Zazen exists, even slightly, there's a gap. Zazen, as this Zazen that he's speaking of, the one of joyful ease, the Dharma gate of joyful ease, that's the gate where Zazen is Zazen. There is no longer any gap. That's where Zazen has disappeared. There are said to be 4 conditions in practice. The first is that the self has disappeared, but the objective form still remains. The second is that the self exists, but the objective form has disappeared. The third is that both self and the objective form have disappeared. And fourthly, the condition where the self and the objective form both remain, they do exist. It's said that we can check our practice at any time. And for those of us who have been practicing for a longer time, we know that we are in one of these conditions. We can look at our practice, and if we fit into any of one of those 4 conditions, we'll know that we still are on the way. Dogen Zenji, about the time he wrote or finished tweaking with it, that's how I understand it. He was 33, 34. He put out another short work called Gaku Doyo Jinshu, Guidelines for Studying the Way. And in that work, well worth reading, there is the following statement. First, you must believe that you are already within the way. You must believe that you are free of delusion, illusory thoughts, confused ideas, increase and decrease, and mistaken understanding. Believing in this manner, clarify the way and practice accordingly. This is the essence of studying the way. Here Dogen Zenji is underlining the importance of faith. That we've always been within the way. subject neither to delusion or illusion or mistaken understanding. That's like the starting point. Really believe that you're in the way. And then that belief is important, but it cannot remain like these 4 conditions of practice that I've just mentioned. Belief is important, but in the end, we also must let go of belief. Otherwise, there's 2 things. There's a gap about as wide as heaven and earth, because there's somebody who's believing in something. It doesn't matter what you're believing in, the way, the Dharma, Zazen. I firmly believe that our goal, there is an objective. Like the deer hunter, we do have an objective. The deer hunter, clearly, there's no doubt in his mind. He's not looking for a squirrel or a rabbit. He's not going to sit down and have a smoke. No, he's firmly, he doesn't even need to believe that. He's sure of that. And in our case as well, Dogen is saying, Dogen's age, how important belief is. We believe that the way is originally perfect and all-pervading. We believe that Zazen is the Dharma gate of joyful ease. And then we have to verify it. And the way we verify it, really, there's only one way. And so I'm thinking to myself, I wonder, don't get me wrong, Fukanzazengi, I place in the upper pantheons of Buddhist sutras. But so I was thinking, maybe he's being too subtle here. And probably not. That's probably my own projection. But nevertheless, Zazen, in Zazen, my teacher always said that the method is the result. That the deer hunter and the deer are one, that there is no gap. I think it's important also to believe that, otherwise, either consciously or unconsciously, there'll be another objective. We'll be looking outside the method. We'll be looking for some result. We'll be projecting some result. And I think that's why in this translation here, the Zazen I speak of is not meditation practice. And of course, many people think of Zazen as meditation. It's a means of calming the mind, becoming quiet, of getting yourself together. Busy, stressful life. I've got to do something. I want to become quiet. The Dogen is saying, no, it's the method. And I really wonder if he speaks about the method clearly enough. Of course, from his point of view, he is shikantaza, just sitting. He doesn't really mention that. He doesn't use those words here. Not thinking good, not thinking bad. Letting go of the operations of the mind. Cutting off past and future, and so on. All of these ideas, these teachings, to help us remain one-pointed. If it's the breath, then one breath. Each breath is new. It's not like we're on a conveyor belt and we fall off. Oh, yeah, that was it. No, otherwise, Zazen will never become Zazen. My teacher was fond of saying, just warm the zafu. That doesn't take any effort. Just warm the zafu. With the idea of thoughts coming and going. But we can also get stuck there too, just sitting, grinding up just. If we don't get rid of just, we'll never really come, I believe, to just sitting. Just sitting is again referring to that condition where there is no gap, no separation, where Zazen is Zazen, not me doing Zazen. This all might sound difficult. That's not my intention. I want to encourage you to continue. If you continue, Zazen will teach you Zazen. But remember this, the method is the result. The method is the result. That means we're not striving to arrive at some other place. We're already here. The way is originally perfect and all pervading. It is simply the Dharma gate of joyful ease, but let's verify it. Let's do it. Thanks so much for your efforts. I thank all of my colleagues here at Hokyoji as well for your diligence and dedication.
May our intention equally penetrate every being in place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless, I vow to freedom. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma